On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, the NFL's biggest sleeper is... Episode 178 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you on this lovely Wednesday afternoon?
I am doing swell. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to talk a little bit of football here. It's been a little while, but now that we're ramping up here, the NFL season, college football season, the college football season is knocking right on our doorstep here, and then the NFL, NFL season, we can see it driving down the street. So I'm getting amped. How about you?
I am getting excited as well, and I'll be honest with you, I want to say around May, June time after we finished the actual NFL draft, I was just amped for college football, and then over the last month or so, I don't know if it's been, really busy with work or been busy outside of work, but just the football excitement wasn't hitting on a different level that I would usually expect at that point. But now that we are only about a week away from the NFL season, we have legitimate college football games tomorrow. I am so amped for football to start and really amped to get a little hot take and debate because this is one of my favorite shows. Chase and I just shooting hot takes. Sometimes we have guests. This time we do not, but it's going to be a good episode where we just shoot out some hot takes, and then I'll tell him he's an idiot, and he'll tell me I'm such a genius, and it'll be a great show.
Yeah, we don't need, first of all, you're going to be the idiot here. Second of all, we don't need any other non-intellectuals on the show because I'm all the big brain that our listeners need.
Right. Exactly. For sure. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I do have to say, big shout out to the boss because he bought our beers today after work, which was fantastic. Love that.
That is elite.
Didn't really expect it, but I shot over an invite to him last minute before we headed over to the old brewery, and sure enough, he joined us and paid for the beer, so good to go. But anyways, let's talk about some foosball. We will do hot take and debate, but before we do that, and there's been a shit ton of news, I'll be honest with you. We're not going to cover it all here. Sorry if that's what you're looking for. I want you to name
every single cut.
Yeah, sorry if that's what you're looking for. It's not going to be this show. This show is going to be much more hot takes and then arguments, which arguing is fantastic. I got to say that's probably one of my favorite things to do. But there is one thing I do want to talk about, that being the Jonathan Taylor situation. He does not get dealt before the cut window. They're keeping him on the PUP, and, we might not see him for a long while. So it's going to be interesting. But we did hear that the Colts asked for Jalen Waddle in return for Jonathan Taylor. And then our buddy old pal John Dowell, he mentioned that Chase is asking for similar value, similar compensation when it comes to fantasy.
He offered me Kelsey and 3 4th-round picks for Jonathan Taylor, Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley. But the hell would I do that for?
And
what?
And mind you, folks, this is Dynasty. This isn't just a redraft. So,
I just absolute idiocy. I should drop the screenshot in there anyway. I'm not that kind of guy, but he kind of deserves this one. But no, I don't think it's going to be as drastic a situation as people think it's gonna. Honestly, my gut feeling is that once he's healthy, the Colts are going to realize, oh, we are winless. We need him. And then they're going to activate him. He's going to play. He's going to get paid. He's going to be fine. I honestly feel that way. But who knows? Could be wrong. Could be right. We'll see. That asking price, I feel like that's got to be more of a Jim Irsay thing, being ownership wants Jalen Waddle for him. I can't imagine any rational GM or head coach would go out and make that phone call. I really don't. It's wild. It's wild to see that was the ask.
I agree with you, but at the same time, we saw Frank Reich go down in the Colts regime, but Ballard didn't. And I know our buddy Chris, he's a Colts fan. He likes Ballard, but if you're going to take out the head coach, why wouldn't you do a whole regime change with the GM as well? It's not like he was making, earth-shattering moves, bringing in Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, and other horrible quarterbacks. Obviously, a tough situation to be in, but if Frank Reich's going to get the can, I think Ballard should as well. So I don't know. Maybe Ballard and Irsay are in cahoots, and it was Ballard asking for Jalen Waddle,
I mean, maybe, who knows? But part of this whole dynamic is, so Ballard is the one that fired Frank Reich here, and that's more of a saving face. This is my last attempt. Frank Reich was the one that was wrong here, not me. Save my job. I'm going to bring in a new coach. We're going to be fine. And we're going to see that that's going to be wrong, and they're going to fail this year. And this type of situation, whether it is Jim Irsay or not, is a prime example of it. Because even if it is Jim Irsay, like I think it is pushing for this, as a GM, you're still the one that's making that phone call more often than not. If my owner said that's what we need to get, I would be honest with you, yeah, like we can't get that. Like we just cannot. So I wouldn't even bother making the phone call. So it's on like every party here in the situation. I don't think he's gonna last. I think he'll probably get through the season, but coming out of the season, I think Ballard's out. I do think that Jonathan Taylor will end up playing this year though, and even if he doesn't get like a long-term extension, I think he'll at least get kind of his money's worth for this year.
I think the one thing that sucks with that type of situation where the GM and the coach don't come in at the same time is if Ballard does end up being on the outs at the end of this season, that means things didn't go so hot. Shane Steichen's rookie season as the head coach didn't go so hot. If he has another bad year under a brand new regime, he's probably on his way out too, and that might not be deserving. But because he had two different general managers in 2 different years, there's nothing he can really do about it. So I think we've talked about it probably 74 times on this show as well as the Bolts broadcast that if you're going to make a change in the front office / at the head coach position, do it at the same time because those guys will be able to come together, grow together, and really try to right the ship together, because if it's a different hire from a different GM, things probably aren't going to work out too well.
And generally speaking, when it is a cleaning house situation and both are gone, the GM's hired first. That's a job that is done by like the president of football operations, usually is the one looking for that role, and then from there the GM's one that's going to go make the coaching hire. So that's why usually you see when both things go, they come in together and they kind of have similar philosophies. So it is always going to be a bit weird when one gets the can, then the other gets the one next year. You're 100% correct. But, one situation where the coach was brought in and the GM was brought in afterwards, even though it wasn't a full season, but still is the case. My Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell's hired before Brad Holmes, and those two look like they gel together more than any other coach and GM in the league. So sometimes things still work out.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different because they came on the same year. So
Sure.
Whereas if Dan Campbell wasn't hired by who was the GM at the time before he got fired.
What's his nuts? From I don't know why I can't think of his name. Give me a second. Oh, that's pathetic.
Yeah, so the former Lions GM, he was already out the door. So
Bob Quinn.
Yeah, Bob Quinn, already out the door. He wasn't in management that hired Dan Campbell. So I kind of see how they gel a little bit better together. But regardless, well, Chase, let's hop into hot take and debate, shall we?
We shall.
I'm really hoping we're not going to be doing too many hot takes about our own teams. I personally don't have any about my team, but that's because I'm super unselfish, super accommodating to the people. So we'll see what you do.
I don't have one touching any specific team.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So I like my college football hot takes better than my NFL ones, but I can still respect my NFL ones. So you ready to go? You want me to start?
Yeah, feel free.
All right. So this one's a kind of a two-parter, but my first NFL hot take is there will be a first-time MVP and first-time Super Bowl champion this season. So looking at things right now, the way they stand. So based on Vegas betting odds, when we're looking at MVP, since that's what I said first, we'll kind of start there. We'll just kind of go off of. I think it's filtered by FanDuel here, so based on FanDuel odds, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Fields. Those are the top 10. And so of that list, we have Patrick Mahomes, we have Aaron Rodgers, and that is it, correct.
Yeah, I think so.
But at the same time, those are the two most recent MVP winners, and Patrick Mahomes is leaps and bounds above everybody else. But I do think this is a year where we see, my two guys that I would bet would be Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert's got an opportunity to take that big jump this year. And the fantasy footballers, the biggest fantasy football podcasters out there, one of the guys on the show said that Justin Herbert's thrown for 50 touchdowns this year, which seems excessive. But if that's the case, then he's winning clerk and MVP there. But I do think we're going to see first time MVP there, and my two bets would be Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And then when you're looking at the Super Bowl odds, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Niners, Bengals, Cowboys, Jets, Ravens, Lions, and Dolphins round out the top 10. And not to butter Mike's role too much, but I really think of all these first time potential winners here. I think the Bengals are the clear favorites, even above the Bills, who I still think are talented. The Bengals just seem like they're more of that Super Bowl contending type team. So I think we could get a double action Joe Burrow and Bengals Super Bowl win here.
Yeah, and that would excite the hell out of me, and it's kind of weird.
Really?
Thinking 4 or 5 years back, if you'd be talking about the Bengals quarterback winning MVP and the Bengals winning the Super Bowl, I'd think you're crazy. But I just really quickly wanted to say, the Bills are what, third or fourth in Super Bowl odds?
Bills are third.
Which, they're a good team. They are. And Josh Allen, he at times can play at that MVP level. Very good player. But I feel like over the past couple of years, we've seen they can't keep up with the likes of the Bengals and the Chiefs. So why do we keep putting them above the likes of the Bengals? And, no shame being thrown, but I feel like overall the Bills have gotten worse over this offseason. Stephon Diggs, there's some questions about him, and obviously he's going to play, but there's questions about whether he's completely happy in that organization right now. So I don't know. I just feel like the Bills at 3 out of 32 different teams is kind of crazy because they've been at the very best the third team in the AFC.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I do hear. I don't really disagree. I would say it's the Chiefs and the Bengals. Bills are definitely still in that hunt. Don't get me wrong, but I personally from this list, I don't think the Jets should be ranked that high. Even if they have Aaron Rodgers, I still don't believe in them enough. But there was one guy that I do have written down that I forgot to mention on this MVP list. So his odds across different sports books are either plus 4,000 or plus 4,500. And I would definitely go sprinkle a few bucks on Russell Wilson here because he is yet to get an MVP vote. And if he bounces back like we thought he was going to have the year, the year we thought we were going to have from Russell Wilson last year in Denver, if he has that year this year, like that, there's enough talent with him and his surrounding weapons under a Sean Payton, run team that he could be an MVP quarterback here this year. It really it'd be a big jump back, but in terms of the pedigree of Russell Wilson, it also wouldn't be incredibly surprising. So that is the dark horse of it all. I'd go sprinkle a few bucks on him.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but last year I had Ross as an MVP and Nathaniel Hackett as a Coach of the Year candidate, and obviously that just blew up on my face, but there's a chance. And the Broncos, they could be that sleeper team, but we'll have to wait to find out about that. I'm going to just have to throw away one of my hot takes. One of my hot takes was going to be a healthy Chargers offense plus Quentin Johnston bring the Chargers to the top of the AFC West and put Justin Herbert's in top 3 for MVP voting. But I'm just going to throw that one out because you talked about it. Justin Herbert, he's in that realm when it comes to MVP, and I like your hot take, and that kind of coincides with it.
Yeah, this is probably one of the prime years for him to do it because he still has Keenan Allen, Mike Williams in their primes. They still have Austin Eckler on the roster. Quentin Johnson is a talented rookie who's going to come in and play. Gerald Everett is a very strong tight end. The offensive line is improving. Like in terms of the offense itself, for Justin Herbert, like he's got just about anything you could really realistically ask for around him. So like I don't want to say, obviously I don't want to say it's now or never, but this is going to be one of the best opportunities he has in his career. If like honestly, maybe if not the best.
Yeah. And so if I had to put a rating on your hot take there, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Look, I love it. I think it's very, very possible, but for both to happen, a first-time MVP and a first-time Super Bowl winner, that's going to be very difficult when obviously you got to go face down the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And then you got to face, when it comes to that Super Bowl window, the Eagles and the 49ers when it comes to the NFC, because those two are pretty clearly the dominant power horses there in the NFC. So to have both coincide, that's going to be tough. But I think there is that possibility with the likes of the Bengals, with the likes of the Bills. So,
for sure.
All right. I'm going to move to my first hot take. And this one, I feel like when you think of the hot take just at base level, it doesn't seem that hot. But when you think about all the things that coincide with it, it gets pretty hot. And that's going to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson steals Deshaun Watson's job. Look, I don't think Deshaun Watson was anything special last year. Through all the training camp clips we've seen, it doesn't look like he's back to prime Deshaun Watson. Dorian Thompson-Robinson obviously has some work to do in his game, but he's shown in the preseason that he can be an electric player. He can be electric with his legs. He's got good passing ability as well. I think the big thing that hurts this one is the contract. You got $230 million guaranteed into Deshaun Watson right now. So for a fourth-round rookie to come in, I think he was a fourth-rounder, to come in and steal the job from Deshaun Watson, that does not seem very likely.
No, it definitely is a stretch. But my rankings, I had DTR as a second-round pick. That's where I would have taken him. I would have drafted him as a sit behind a guy for a year or two that he's becoming the starter type player anyway. Him starting in year one, depending on a situation, I wouldn't have even said it's that far, out of the realm of possibility, especially going into the season a little bit more. So in terms of the talent, yeah, I could see a path where this happens because like D Watts, ever since all this happened with him, he's down. I don't think he's recovering. And DTR, he did look so strong in this camp, but money does talk. It's not an easy thing to get out of. And even if you might have more of a chance winning with DTR, do you really want, like $250 million sitting on the bench? You probably don't. So unless they can figure out a way to restructure a contract, take off some of the guaranteed money, or like get out of that, whatever they might do, like it's gonna be hard for him to lose that job anytime soon.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. 5 years remaining on this contract. He won't be a free agent until 2027. So it's going to be interesting. But I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I feel like was, if not the most exciting player to watch during preseason, definitely a top 5 player to watch in this preseason, because the things he was doing out on the field, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, he looked great, man. And for me to give a rating to your hot take, I'll call it a 9.5 out of 10, just because of the unlikelihood of it happening in terms of financials. Not based on talent, in terms of financials.
Oh, so I was figuring the low was not going to happen.
Oh, okay. Well, then I thought this is spiciness, not likely it was going to happen. Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll do spiciness then. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well then, if it's spiciness, I'll give yours a 7 out of 10, because I think there's room, but it's going to be very difficult. Okay, spiciness.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. What I'm saying there, I feel like that makes more sense for a grading scale, but that's why I say like not 9.5 out of 10, just because it's gonna be tough with the financials, but I wouldn't be like, holy guacamole, I can't believe that happened. Like our pigs flying in my backyard too, because that's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you know what they say, Mike's spicy. So, all right, let's go to your second hot take for the NFL season.
So this one, just plain and simple, a sub 500 team will make the playoffs this year, and pending a tie, this year, and how the NFL is structured, and like going forward for at least a little bit, uh, you're gonna finish above or below 500. You won't finish at unless you get a tie because there's the odd number of games now with 17. So when you're kind of looking at everything, I have a hard time seeing the AFC being the team that ends up in there, because right now my 7 seed based off of our show that we did, is the Baltimore Ravens going 10-7. So it's going to be a bit lofty there. But when we look over at the NFC, I have my 7, 8, 9 teams are 9-8, 9-8, 8-9. So those teams are all like a loss instead of a win away from potentially just being like a losing record, or even have an losing an extra loss, or say, excuse me, for the 8-9 team. So all it takes is a cross conference opponent that you're going to play. So like the Rams, for example, I have them at 9-8 in my seven spot in the playoffs. All of a sudden, if they lose one of their cross conference games that I have them winning, they go 8-9. But the Seahawks do the same thing, and then all of a sudden, like it's them, the Seahawks, or the Bears that I have at 8-9 that could all make that push for the playoffs. So I see a path where this could happen, because just the talent levels compared to the NFC and the AFC right now, it's actually pretty large. So I'm making the proclamation that a losing record will make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go back to our division previews, when you look at the NFC South specifically, I'm not going to tell you who, but who I had winning the division were 8-9. So that's an automatic bid to the playoffs if you win your division. So I could totally see it happening. I think the NFC South is the big one to look at. Obviously, there could be a wild card that sneaks in there as well. That's pretty weak. But I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if the NFC South was the teams that went negative and made the playoffs. I mean, we saw it last year. Tampa was 8-9 and they won the division. So I'd probably give it a 4 in spiciness rating, maybe a 3, just because we've seen it so recently. And when you look at the NFC South and the NFC as a conference as a whole, I mean, you're definitely right when you say it's a little bit weaker than the AFC.
Yeah, it for sure is. And in terms of takes, I know this is my least spicy of the 3, or I would call it my least spicy of the 3. But like it's still historically, it's not very, especially like in Super Bowl era, it's not very common for losing records to make playoffs. It's pretty rare. So that's why I'd still consider it a hot take, even though that division's definitely got a strong chance, or even a team like the Rams or the Seahawks, where I have them, those teams are still all in the mix too. So don't be surprised if one team does. I mean, hell, maybe even 2 teams do.
That would be that would be a spicy take right there.
Should I change my take to that?
I mean, it would shoot up from a 3-4 to a 9.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a little too bold to put out there for the world.
Yeah, that would be a bold one for sure. I'd like to say that my next one is the spiciest of them all, but I just got a 9.5 out of 10, so I don't think I can say that. So my next one involves the NFC, and that is representing the NFC in the Super Bowl will be one of 13 teams. The 3 teams it will not be the Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys. I think those 3 are relatively safe in people's top 5 within the NFC. And I'm going to claim that the Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys will all not be representing the NFC next year. So we're going to have to see a big uptick from the likes of the Seahawks or the Lions, maybe the Giants. But those 3 teams will not represent the NFC next year.
So what I just heard is that the Cardinals are going to be better than all 3 of those teams.
Well, no.
Yes. That's what I heard. I
think all teams are
teams and not those 3.
I think all 3 of those will probably make the playoffs, but I don't think either 3 will actually win the NFC Championship and head to the Super Bowl.
Interesting. Well, I'll call it a 5, because even though they are 3 very likely teams, you still never know. Like there's you just don't know what's gonna happen here. But a lot can happen. Like the Lions are a team that I'm very hopeful can make that run this year, and they're getting some praise from from around the league, which is fun but scary at the same time. But I am hopeful that they could be that team. I mean, hell, I even think that like if things don't go to awry, that maybe we do see the Rams bounce back with Matt Stafford. Maybe he wins more and he gets there. So I'll call it a 5 out of 10 because I'll call it a 6, I guess, because I still think it's more likely that those teams get there. But it's there's still so much variability in the NFL that like I don't know. I just don't know.
Geez, you're big on the Rams. You keep bringing up the possibility of that team sneaking in. I think they stink. But
I think people are going to be surprised.
I do want, well, they've got 3 players. Have you played them in Madden recently? Because I
can't say I have.
I think if you get rid of Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald, the overall average of that team is like a 72. But I did want to say about the 3 teams that I just mentioned, the Eagles, Cowboys, 49ers, saying they won't represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. When you look at last year, only 4 NFC teams had double-digit wins, 3 of them being the Eagles, Cowboys, and 49ers, the only other one being the Vikings. But I feel like most people assume the Vikings going to regress a little bit, not be at that same level that they were last year when it came to the regular season. Obviously, the playoffs didn't work too well for them, but regular season, they did have 13 wins. So, yeah.
It's because they did the opposite of what the Lions did. They happened to win every one-score game instead of lose every one-score game. So once it came time to put up or shut up, they shut up.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Chase, final hot take from you. Let's hear it.
So last season, we had one of these guys. We had another one come close, but we had one. But this year, we will have 3 players with 2,000 all-purpose yards, and one of them will be a wide receiver. So that's basically saying, I mean, even if they do have a rush or 2 that ends up with like 30 yards and they end up, with 1,970 receiving, but it's 2,000 all-purpose. I think that we're going to see 2 running backs and a receiver. And I mean, for sure, at least 1 running back, and I do think at least 1 receiver, and we'll see if it's a second receiver, second running back. But at the end of the day, it is most likely it's a running back because they're getting the most touches. But last year, Josh Jacobs barely crossed that mark. He had 2,053 all-purpose. Derrick Henry just behind him at 1,930. Christian McCaffrey at 1,880. Justin Jefferson was the highest receiver at 1,833. So with the way the Vikings are now, Adam Thielen's out the door. Dalvin Cook's out the door. Team isn't going to be as good. I think they're going to be throwing more than they even did last year. I think that Justin Jefferson is going to, not necessarily break Michael Thomas's, target record, but like he's going to be up there. He's going to have some, one of the highest target levels in NFL history. He's going to get fed the ball, and he's just so good that it doesn't matter how much you cover him. Like he's going to get open, he's going to get the ball, and he's going to get the yardage. So I think that, Justin Jefferson, he is probably going to be somebody who just dominates this year. I think he's going to be, cut above the rest, going to break that 2,000 yard mark. And then outside of that, Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to, stay healthy fully here in this new 49er system. I think he's going to get more work than he did last year, maybe more work than he has in a while in the NFL. And then Austin Eckler, I mean, right now, out of the backfield, he's got no competition, really. Like, it's just kind of him. And I think they're going to kind of run him into the ground in terms of usage because I don't think he's with the Chargers after the season. So they're going to try to get everything they can out of him. So he's going to run the ball a lot. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to be very active. So 3 guys over 2K all purpose.
1 for 3 isn't bad when it actually came to the predictions of who it's going to be. I assume the hot take is not going to include those guys, right?
No.
Just the all purpose. No. Yeah.
Yeah, just 3 all purpose. Just 3 guys that I say have a chance.
I was going to say, like, if you did Jamar Chase, CMC, and Bijan Robinson, I probably would have put 1 on the spice level because we all know those guys are all cracked, just unreal, best at their position.
Mike.
What's up?
Mike, do they happen to be in your dynasty roster?
Not Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. Well, okay. Sorry. The most obvious one isn't. Sorry.
No, but I like it. It's gonna be definitely spicy. I mean, just thinking about last year, only Josh Jacobs broke it, and thinking about running backs overall, I think we've seen CMC break it. I think we've seen Saquon break it, but Other than that, recently, I don't know. I don't think Alvin Kamara has crossed that threshold. So to be able to get 3 different players, that's going to be quite wild. I'm going to give that a good 8.73 out of 10. Got to put the points in there on that one.
8.73.
It's going to be a good one, and I'm really excited to see who has the possibility of breaking that. I think Justin Jefferson, obviously a good choice. I don't know necessarily if Jamar Chase is a great choice for that one, because although he's a fantastic player, they also have T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon's still going to be there. There's so much other talent in that room. So would he be able to cross that threshold? I think it's a possibility, but I'd probably take Jefferson over him. Other wide receivers, I'm not really sure. It'd definitely be tough. And then running back, I think you could make a case for a lot of guys. CMC being the obvious one. Josh Jacobs did it last year. He's going to be back. Could do it. Saquon Barkley, same thing. Bijan Robinson. I honestly think he's going to be a top 5 back at the end of this year. So I think it's possible, but again, that number is so insane that it's got to be an 8.73.
Want to hear something wild?
Yes, please.
Raheem Mostert had 1,595 all-purpose last year.
What?
Yeah, right.
Raheem the Dream?
Yeah. So what do they need Jonathan Taylor for? They don't. They've got Raheem Mostert, who had 1,600 all-purpose essentially. Tyreek Hill, who had just under 1,800 all-purpose. They've got all they need.
Dude, I would have never guessed Raheem Mostert was that dude last year.
He had more all-purpose yards than, here's the guys immediately following him: Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Dalvin Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Alvin Kamara, Jalen Waddle, blah, blah, blah.
Dude, Raheem Mostert was only the running back 26 last year. Bro just didn't score.
He had a total of 8 touchdowns.
That still seems like so much.
It was 5 on the ground, 3 receiving. Where if you look at the guys like above him, the other running backs like Eckler had, what is that?
Are we sure this is last year?
No. Sorry. This is 2022, or is this or is this kind of 2023?
I don't know.
No, this is Josh Jacobs had over 1,000 on purpose last year. Yeah, this is all on the same list. But sorry, that's 5 total touchdowns. I read that wrong. Sorry. So 5 total touchdowns for Raheem Mostert. So that makes a lot more sense.
Jeez. I mean, what a dog, I guess. 1,600 all-purpose yards. That's crazy.
He's him.
I guess so. All right. Final take of the show. Head back to me, and we are going to be talking about the biggest sleeper in the NFL. We mentioned the Denver Broncos. Sorry, not the biggest sleeper this year. Sorry, Derek. But Lions fans, rejoice, because we're not talking about you this episode, buddy. You're not the biggest sleeper either. The biggest sleeper is going to go to the Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers, even though I had them at 7-10 in our division show, they've got a lot of really good pieces, and I think Frank Reich is a fantastic coach. His first season with the Colts, double-digit wins, and I think that the Panthers, they have a lot of pieces there, and that's one thing I've been thinking about overall. I've been a big fan of the Panthers since Matt Rule came in. Part of the reason was Matt Rule, and it didn't work out in the NFL for him, but going back and kind of reflecting on Matt Rule, what he's done for the Panthers and kind of his whole career, is he's never been a fantastic coach per se, but he's been a fantastic rebuilder. The things that he's been able to do at the college level to bring Baylor back around, I think he's going to bring Nebraska back to prominence. Now, will they be the Nebraska of the 80s and the 90s? No, I don't think so. But to bring them back into the conversation of, hey, they're a top 5, top 6 Big Ten team, I think that's very possible for him. And he's done a good job building the Carolina Panthers. Just some of his draft picks. You got the likes of Brian Burns, Derek Brown, Jeremy Chin, and so many others. I think that this defense is definitely stout enough to perform well. And then you got to look at the offense. Are they going to be able to perform? When it comes to the NFC South, I think that they have the potential to take that division because it's such a weak division. And then all you got to do is get hot in the playoffs. So I think this team could definitely be a sleeper. You got to see some good play out of the rookie Bryce Young. You got to see some good play out of the veterans like Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst. Do we see a Jonathan Mingo breakout as a rookie? Their offensive line is stacked on the edges with Iquanu and Moton. So it's just, can you put it all together? I think Frank Reich could be the coach that puts together the great pieces that Matt Rule brought in.
It's really dependent on Bryce Young here, I think. They've got a lot around and a lot of talent that I do like. I can agree with that, but I mean, so do most teams in the NFL. It's going to be really dependent on Bryce Young and if Frank Reich is going to use him the right way and if his system is going to be implemented the right way here in year one. Bryce Young looked really strong in his preseason game against the Lions. I didn't watch much of him elsewhere because I kind of knew he was going to be the starter. So it's like, we'll see what he does in the regular season. But when he played in the Lions against the Lions, a couple beautiful throws. Had a great throw to Adam Thielen for a touchdown. It was very pretty. So I think Bryce Young's definitely got a strong chance to help lead that team there. So I wouldn't be completely shocked. In terms of sleepers, I'll put that one right in the middle. Because just to call a sleeper, it's hard for me to call it super spicy unless you were saying the Cardinals are a sleeper to go 14-3. Then at that point, I'd be like, all right, you're on meth. But I can rock with it, but I also still don't think it's the most likely.
How about this? Does it improve if I say they make the playoffs and win a round?
Yeah, I'll call that an 8 out of 10.
Okay. There we go. I just want to get some Carolina Panthers love in there, especially some Matt Rule love, because I think he is going to do some great things over in Nebraska. And then you and I have talked about it many times that Frank Reich, we think he's a very good coach. Bad year last year in Indianapolis. I don't think he would even deny that, but we think he's got a real possibility with a young quarterback and a lot of really good young players on the defensive side of the ball to actually get some work done.
For sure. I don't disagree.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. We are releasing a college football hot take episode. Actually, that one might go up first. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, make sure to go back and do so because that's going to be a good one, guaranteed. We do have a fantasy football hot take and debate coming next week as well. So stay tuned for that. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on, what do I say here? Do I say Twitter or do I say X?
You gotta say X, right?
I guess. Follow us on X.
Follow us on X, baby.
At WNP Sports Pod. Again, that's on X at WNP Sports Pod. We also have an Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. If you want to follow those, all the links will be down in the description. X and the others as well. If you are watching on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could, please give us a follow and a 5-star rating. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.